But we are getting a look at tournament. We start 4A. That's all the Nick 10 teams. And I was talking with Tony Ambrosio last night, the AD at Christian. I said, the IHSA tried to scramble it up a little bit. And we talked about it last week a little bit. Had seeding gone different, we probably would have scrambled them up. But this year, we didn't scramble them up very good.
Not really at all. It ended up pretty much the same way it always does.
Now, the one game, it doesn't matter because Lutheran's replacing Boylan in the 4A. They'll play Guilford Monday night at 7:30, and they've already beaten Guilford. It was like a week or so ago at Guilford, and East will take on Harlem. And East came from behind and took care of Harlem after Harlem had a second quarter. So both teams have played each other in the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
So I wonder if they learn. Sometimes you learn something from those games. They should be quite interesting. Monday night at Harlem, that's how we're going to kick it off.
Yeah, I think those will be two interesting games. And you wonder how much they learned and maybe how much a coach maybe held back in that game.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, we're going to maybe not run as much as we would normally do here, or, maybe we'll not play this guy as many minutes, something like that, to maybe just keep a little something off film so that way they've got something in their back pocket.
Coaches would never do that.
No, never.
And Dean Martinetti, when I was doing my research, he coached like 3 years at Luther.
He did.
With Goosey, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
So they know each other pretty well. That makes it interesting. Harlem's one of those teams that I've got to see in the Stateline Challenge. If they play one of their better games, and East played a really good game against Boylan. That's going to be a good game, folks. If you want to watch some good games, there probably won't be big crowds there. It's on a Monday night, February 29th, Leap Day.
Yep.
But that ought to be a good one.
No, I think that'll be fun games. I do think you'll probably see East and Lutheran win. But I think they'll be fun games. I think there'll be some competitive games that night.
And their reward for winning, one gets to play Auburn and one gets to play Hononegah.
I tell you what, it's not a great reward. Although I will say this, I think a Hononegah Lutheran matchup would be dynamite. I don't know if you... obviously you look at it, and if Lutheran were to pull that off, you'd call it an upset from seeding and all that. But I tell you, you're going to have two teams there that are going to play very, very disciplined basketball. That would be a fun game to watch. Lutheran's kind of the wild card, I think, in this regional.
Their first year in 4A.
First year in 4A, down year by their standards. But if you don't think that there's talent there and whatnot,
my word!
If there is one team out of those teams playing on a Monday night that could make a run and maybe end up winning this whole regional, that would be the team. I don't think Hononegah would be excited to see them on a Wednesday night, and if Lutheran happened to win that game, I don't think Auburn would be excited to see them on a Friday night. Not to say Lutheran's going to beat either of those teams. They could very well lose to Guilford on that first night. But I do think that they're kind of the wild card when you look at that regional. That could really kind of throw a lot of things off.
And Kenny Strawbridge really grew this year, and he's only a sophomore, folks.
Yeah.
If you watch him play, you're going, that kid's a sophomore?
Yeah.
He can play.
Well, and that's the type of player that can, especially in these quick turnarounds and settings like that can make a big, big difference, because he could have one of those nights, put up 25, 30 points, something like that, keep you in a ball game, and then you hit a shot late, and next thing you know, you've knocked the team off.
Remember Mr. Peabody and Sherman and the Wayback Machine?
Yeah.
Let's go back 1 year. Do you remember that first game over at Guilford in the regionals when East upset Auburn, and they had a chance to beat the top team that we were talking about going to state?
Yeah.
So anything is possible, because right now everybody is 0-0. And I look back on that game saying, I bet you Coach Ott says, now, you remember last year what happened to us, guys?
Yeah.
That we don't want that to happen.
Exactly.
We don't want to get a scare like that.
But that's what, like you said, everybody goes to 0-0, and I think that's what happens. You get late in the regular season, especially if you've kind of had a down year, if you're pretty far behind in the conference standings, those kind of things. Maybe the seeding's already done, so you're kind of like, hey, what are we playing for at this point? And, I think you could see some teams maybe kind of slip a little bit, that kind of stuff. But yeah, you get back to 0-0 and all that, and you know that the next game could be the last one. You start seeing some teams play with a little bit more urgency and things like that. And sometimes you see some teams that are higher ranked take things for granted a little bit. And I think you get those two combinations, and all of a sudden, you end up with a game where maybe something crazy happens.
And it's also good, those preliminary games, you get on the floor, you get those little jitters out right away.
Yep.
So when you do have to play the top seeds, you might have a little advantage on them to start the game. And anything is possible. The East game last year showed that to me, and it ought to be a lot of fun. So, and it's close to my house, too. That's what I like about it. There's another 4A regional going around with some Nick 10 teams. Crystal Lake South. Belvedere plays Monday night. They take on 11 seed Crystal Lake Central. Belvedere is a
Belvedere North.
Belvedere North, okay. Yep. Belvedere North is a 10 seed. And that could be a good matchup, because I'll tell you what, Belvedere North, I've seen them all year. They beat Rockford Lutheran. Okay, you put that in there. They beat Belvedere this year. So you don't want to play them when Ryland Kirk's hitting those 7 threes in a row or so, but they at least get away from all this stuff, and they can see some new faces, and it helps sometimes, I think. And are they? No, Jefferson's there too, right? Jefferson will play Wednesday, March 2nd. They'll take on the 4 seed Crystal Lake South. Jefferson got a 5 seed, so had they got a different seed, they would have been at Harlem,
right?
And the 4 seed would have been here. So kind of interesting. And the strange thing is DeKalb is not here with this bunch. They went down to the suburbs.
Yeah. Yep, they're in a completely different one, which is kind of odd how that all worked out. But I also know that Jefferson a lot of times has been put with those Crystal Lake teams. Even before. Again, I think
they're farther south.
It kind of worked out the way it's worked out a lot of times in the past with Jefferson and even Belvedere North ended up there, because a lot of times in the past they've ended up with those teams in different regionals and things like that. Before, Jefferson was always the one team that would seem to get shipped out. Depending on how the classes fell.
They were happy about it usually.
Oh, yeah, they usually were, because they like to get away. And
you don't want to play somebody 3 times. I don't care.
No, at least not until you have to. No. And it'll be interesting to see how Jefferson can do there. I think you'll get a good gauge for how they really fall. And, that's another team that I think could be dangerous. They play some young guys that, as Coach Brandon says, aren't as young anymore because they've played a full season. I think they've finished a lot better than they kind of started with those young guys, and interesting to see how they do there.
3A will be really interesting, because this first year Boylan's going to be 3A, and everybody in 3A was happy to see Lutheran go to 4A until they found out Boylan was coming down to 3A. On the 29th over at Freeport, who's hosting a regional, number 8 seed Stillman Valley will take on Rochelle, and their reward, whoever wins that game gets to play Boylan on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I tell you what, I look at that entire regional, and I'll be up front. I don't know much about Woodstock Marion and how good they may or may not be, but and no pressure to Coach Winters, but if they don't win every game by at least 10 points there, I'll be shocked.
Yeah,
I think that would be
gentle.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't you think that's part of the deal, though, when you look at how they seeded stuff, when they do the 2 subsectionals?
Yeah.
Because you put, Woodstock Marion at a 4 seed, and I know they haven't had a great year, but maybe if they were all together, they wouldn't even be that high. So what do they get? They get to play Boylan, maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one for them.
Yeah, you know what? I do hate to put pressure on Coach Winters, but... And, Stillman Valley, they may be sitting at home chomping their bit saying, man, what do you guys know?
Yeah.
They're absolutely right.
Well, and I'll say this. I think everybody is going to show up and give Boylan the best that they've got. I think everybody would love to be that team that knocked them off, especially when you're talking about a team that people are looking at to go downstate. So, Boylan's going to have to show up and play.
They're good, though.
they are good, but if they are focused when they show up to the game against those teams, no offense to anybody, but I don't think Boylan's going to have any problems.
You got a guy like Cooper, and Fairley can handle the ball better than I thought he could.
Yeah.
He can handle the ball, and he's getting back at the right time.
Yep.
And they just shuffled. They had a kid on the JV team, or the sophomore team. I don't know who he is. I think it was number 33. He hit like 8 3-pointers.
Yeah.
And he's sitting on the bench on the sophomore. He's not sitting on the bench. He's starting, but...
Right,
they're loaded all the way down.
Oh yeah. They're younger.
And Gordy's team, Casper, they won the freshman.
The freshmen have played really well, and I think they had a couple. I could be wrong with this, but I think they had 1 or 2 freshmen playing on the sophomore team. Yeah. And still that doing that well. So that program is definitely back where it used to be. And we talked about this earlier in the show, but it's impressive. You talk about Fairley. It's one of the best players I've seen all year.
What is he, 6'7"?
I think, but he's got so many, and he can play down low. He plays well on the perimeter, but he can also go down low and get you points. He can do so much.
Great defensively too.
Again, you could put him on some other teams, and he'd probably be scoring 20, 24 points a game. Getting 10 rebounds a game, and we'd probably be talking about him as the conference MVP and all that kind of stuff. But in credit to him, he blends in so well to that team. He doesn't try to dominate. He takes what's there. He plays within the team construct, and boy, they're good.
Yeah, even the guys on that team that are good.
Yeah.
The ones that aren't the great ones, they're the good ones. Also, if you're a 3A, you probably would want to go to the Woodstock Regional because there's a good opportunity there for someone. And I think that'll benefit Belvedere, who's a 6th seed. They'll take on Woodstock North Monday night in that first game. And then Genoa Kingston with Tommy Luca will take on Harvard. And then the winners of those will, Belvedere would play Marengo if they win. And the other game will play Woodstock High School. That should be interesting, because I think the fact is that Belvedere could actually sneak out.
Oh, I think they absolutely could.
Because Belvedere plays a high-caliber game, and they had a winning record in the Nick 10. I mean, they did get upset by Belvedere North.
But you take that one away, and I mean, who are the teams that they struggled against? Boylan, Auburn, Hononegah, and Jefferson.
Take away that,
so those we're talking about, top 5 seeds in 4A, sectionals.
And
there.
Deontay Barnes plays like when you saw him play, when he scored 30. Yep. Everybody's going to be in trouble in that.
They absolutely will be, and that is to me is such a fun regional because you mentioned him and the night that he dominated. You talk about Tommy Luca
and Zach Knobloch at Marengo. There's some good. I would love to see some of those
I think there could be some fun, individual matchups within those games where, you kind of get one guy scoring 25, the other's got 22 or 30 and 32, that kind of thing. And
they do that, those guys.
And the game could really come down to which individual player maybe does the best in those games. And that you can have it both ways. I think it's fun both ways. It's really fun when you see two really good teams go at it, and how that can kind of go, like when you get a Hononegah together with somebody where they really play that team game and everything. But it's fun sometimes, too, to just watch two guys go at it.
Oh, I love it.
Just two really, really good players that maybe are carrying teams, on their backs and, putting up, 30 points or whatever and trying to will their team to a victory. And I think you could have several matchups within that regional that are like that. I think that'll be fun.
And Luca and Knobloch have been doing that all year, but you throw in a Deontay Barnes. That one's wide open.
Yeah, I agree.
I've done my homework on that a little bit. That one's wide open, more than what the Freeport one is.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
So it ought to be pretty exciting. Hey, let's take a timeout. That was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I'm all piped. I got 2 games I can go to Monday night. Wife's out of town, so
I might actually show up with you.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
You can do